All right, today I'm sitting down with Zeno Mercer, head of robotics and AI research at TMX. This is the company that runs Canada's stock exchange. Zeno, thanks for being here. I really
Hey,
appreciate it.
thanks for having me on.
Okay, the first question: how is AI being used in capital markets? Like, what are they doing over there with AI?
Yeah, so AI and let's break it down. Like the use of data has been used and foundational for capital markets for a long time. So you know that has just seen many evolutions, right? Of stock exchanges matching orders. It used to be very analog. It became digital. Now, obviously, you've had different groups using machine learning and let's call it AI, like hedge funds. But so let's break it down that there's a lot of different components of how AI can be used and it is used across the various components that make up capital markets, from the exchanges themselves to the companies that are on the exchanges, how they're sharing data, even how that data is communicated and received. Um, the assumptions that are made on that data. So, how investor relations teams get data, how that data is submitted to FactSet, Bloomberg, ICE. There's so many different data points of data, and each one is traced back to something. Um, and so that whole path itself is ripe and is using a lot of different forms of artificial intelligence. For example, indexing other types of, so like there's ETFs, right? Those have obviously, there's been algorithmic elements to that for a long time. Those have been improved with keyword searching and, going from, the ability to even have basic natural language processing. So we went from like search to kind of like higher level NLP, to LLMs, and that's improving the ability for like individual users to interact with the data that's in capital markets. So that's even going down to like people on the buy side. So there's so many different like you ask, where's AI being used in capital markets? It's all over the place. Of course, we're also seeing elements of it appearing, and it's like, the crossover of decentralized finance and tokenization. And where does AI and that intersect, right? There's so many different kind of components here that exist in a centralized fashion and then kind of like outside traditional areas.
Do you just see everything being automated in 5 years from AI? Like, what's the use? Like, maybe a little bit of human in the loop, but just like every financial institution, every trade is just AI. Because like, there's less room for error if AI is doing it. And then even me on the retail side, I just use my AI assistant to start making the trades for me. I give it all the parameters, a proven methodology, and go, yeah, go trade for me. You're my new day trader. Allocate a budget. Like, is that where it's going? Where it's like we just all sit back and just let AI do all the trading and there is no more humans?
Yeah, I mean, look, there is a like at a certain point, as I mentioned, everything can be distilled down to data and what you do with that data. And a lot of times, you know, humans are either acting or verifying. And I've often kind of put out this framework. You're either making something, manipulating something, or moving something.
Mm,
And part of that is like you're making something, you're generating something new, you're manipulating something, you're modifying it or you're moving it. Like that data is moving from A to B. And so that used to be, pigeons and physical, very physical and manual. And now those are turning into APIs. And those have been APIs for a while, but increasingly it's like, you have an agent, maybe running in the cloud, maybe it's personal, maybe it's through a third party. Um, yes, like it is increasingly going to be able to reverse engineer and basically perfect a lot of different types of techniques. I've been saying for a long time that open source is going to eat the world, and what that really means is like you can distill true knowledge of how something works and how to do things, and then combine that with real time information to act on it. And that's what
yeah.
organizations were created to do. And a lot of digital, like any type of service that can be done digitally, like it's like service digital, probably will start to transition to being fully agentic. At least, you know, at least there is a world where like you could have, if you want, almost nearly fully agentic pipelines.
Yeah.
Um, so that is a case. Now, the human in the loop question, I think we'll see less need for human in the loop for increased number of things. In the digital and physical world, and that we can probably touch upon that latter part in a little bit.
I want to explain a couple things. So first of all, when he's saying agent, it's an AI agent. You can have I have an AI agent assistant. I have AI agents who go through my emails. I have AI agents who do outreach for emails. I have AI agents probably in every facet of my life for a very specific task. They're very, very good. And you give them the data, you give them a giant knowledge resource, and they replace an employee, especially for administrative tasks. They're very good at stuff like that, like stuff that doesn't have an element of chaos in it. It's just like very regimented, where a human would just be doing a repeatable task. An agent is very good at doing that kind of thing. So then, what do you think that does to employees in the financial market? Like, you're seeing mass layoffs in Amazon and all these kind of things, and for different reasons. Like Amazon's shut down their gaming studio because they want to focus more on AI. That had nothing to do with AI per se taking gamer developer jobs, but is there something in the financial world where people are getting laid off because AI can just do their job better? And is it going to be, you'll listen to like Elon Musk and everybody a little bit talking about it. A lot of stuff in finance is digital related. It's behind a computer, it's behind a laptop. What do you see happening there in that industry in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think like to take a step back real quick, there is almost a paradox here is that we're going to be seeing individuals empowered and then enterprises, figuring out how to navigate and go forward with the increased utilization of AI systems being utilized, whether like individual agents or just orchestrated intelligence. Um, I mean, there's theories that, however many years from now, let's not put a timestamp that like almost everything can be done automatically. Atoms being controlled by bits. And
Yeah,
I've thought about this for a very long time. I remember arguing with the professor about economics. It's like, well, if we had a perfect system, technically nobody would need to work. And that doesn't mean like there's so many different type you like unraveling that there's a lot of unknowns and uncertainties, right? Like, does that improve quality of life for more people? What happens to purpose? So, okay, that's kind of like let's bundle
yeah,
that in one area, right? That's very meta, right? But we're talking about like real people, real jobs,
yeah,
real livelihoods, and like, if there are less jobs, what does that mean? And what happens to the cost of goods? Like, can you get more for less? Like, there's a lot of different ways to quantify those metrics, right? We have inflation, deflation, um, quality of life measured in number of years, like all these things. I haven't answered your question yet about like the role of jobs in financial services, like healthcare system. It could be anywhere, right? Um, there are some people saying I've heard that DEI will mean do you employ humans at some point, not
oh,
any type of category of humans,
possible.
and it's like, maybe we don't need to employ them, but they're there to like, they're more like engagement points, right? Like, like sure, you can have a robot and an AI do everything, but it's like people want to do, but a lot of people do jobs they don't really want to do, right? So there's a lot
Yeah,
of people who actually would want this type of feature to appear, right? It does introduce questions around mobility and, all these different other elements. But, in a world where, if I ask somebody what your top 10 problems are, and then, if AI or robotics could solve those, I mean, it's like what new types of problem sets did it introduce? I can't really tell you like what, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, who will be employed and why. Is it
yeah,
just people orchestrating and working with AI agents? Because again, to your point, it is likely that a lot of these jobs, like even Claude Code and all these new things that are interacting with your local desktop and your own operating system, like we are starting to see AI become the operating system, right?
yeah,
Of us having to navigate that by hand and do all these things, like you're just talking to a computer. And what you're really doing is you're talking to a rock. You're talking to a rock that's connecting energy, right? And it's
yeah.
able to do things and orchestrate things. And that's, we're going from, anyways, like there's so many paths to go here. But
So because in the field you're in, you sit around there and you ponder this, so you can sort of start thinking out, even hypothetically, 10, 20 years into the future. I do this, I go down a rabbit hole, and then I start feeling weird about investments I'm making. It dictates a little bit of my financial planning and how I invest in stuff. Does it affect how you invest? And I'll one more thing layer on top of that. everyone talks about AI bubble. You saw a tech sell off, right? For multiple reasons, maybe all the capex and people started freaking out, be like, "What's going on here?" But there's this tech sell off. But when we hear people talk about it, you look at how much AI is being used in our day to day life. For my brain, I'm just going, okay, there's a sell off, there's some fear, but no matter what, you can't escape it. AI is being developed. That's where the money's going. It's going to be around in 10 years. It's going to become super profitable. It is a place where I should be looking at for investments because it's already so ingrained in our lives. And very quickly on top of that, I know it's ingrained from personal experience because I have a marketing agency. And I only have to hire 1/10 of who I'd normally have to hire because AI does the rest. But it also made a lot of my services redundant because AI can do it better than a human. So my margins are better. My services are more limited, but my margins are better because I have to employ fewer people. It's completely changed my dynamic.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm saying is, how does it affect your investing? AI bubble is just temporary. This whole fear sell off thing because it's unavoidable. Because when you hear people like Elon talk, he goes, and we're gonna get into robotics here in a second too. And sorry guys, I know I'm going off in a bit of a tangent. I'm just trying to tee you up here. Elon will say stuff like, "Hey, in 10 years there'll be a 1-to-1 ratio of humans to people," and I didn't start believing him until last week. I was looking at buying a 20,000 USD robot to help me with cleaning around my house.
You know, yeah.
Yeah, because I was going, I have kids, they make a lot of mess, and I pay a lady to come clean. It came out to like what I pay her, but this guy doesn't sleep. He's 24/7. It started making sense to me financially. All of that for you. I don't know where you want to start with that, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah. So I've always been interested in sci-fi and curious by technology and how it interacts with humans in the world. Like that has always been a core tenet of who I am. Um, and I guess it's good to like kind of like talk about what I do a little bit, and how like how that overlays into the framework of like why I'm here, why we're having this conversation is, like I do lead the AI and robotics research for Robo Global, which is now part of Vetify at TMX. Now, Robo Global was the world's first robotics index tied to ETFs launched in 2013. And so there was already, a hypothesis that like automation in the physical world was coming. That's why the product and index was made. But obviously it's like where and how that is implemented is evolving too, right? Robotics goes back to the 60s. We had the Jetsons show. Watch the first episode. The first episode, they introduced the maid. I forget her name off
Yeah,
the top of my head, but
yeah,
Rosie. So Rosie is introduced in the first episode of the Jetsons, right? Like this like concept of a maid. Now she's really buggy and quirky, and that's part of the show. I don't think you want your Neo popping things out and causing a mess. That wouldn't be acceptable in a consumer economy. But you're talking about, hey, I could buy a robot for X price that could do, XYZ product. And that's a really good point. We are entering and we work with a bunch of advisors that help guide our index construction and review of companies that are in the public markets. But one thing we realized is, we try to triangulate like where are we heading directionally as a society. It's like we are about to be hitting a point where we are shifting from car payments to robot payments.
yeah,
And so you're like, and I say that because we're going to increasingly see, transportation as a service. We've seen kind of like, 1.0 or 2.0 with Uber and Lyft being on demand. That's now turning into Waymo and like fully autonomous systems that are going to be multimodal, that are going to have packages and humans. It'll be a lot more modular and interconnected and efficient if you look at it from that way, right? Like we're about to see efficiency of any asset just skyrocket based on what we know about it and what we can do with it and how to orchestrate it. What that means is we're going to start shifting, household pays. If you look at like where money flows from the government, from individual consumers, and like overall GDP, you talked about services. Like right now, I think we're in a period where you're going to see pockets. I'm not going to call them bubbles, but I'm going to call them pockets of time or wrinkles of time where you do have alpha in the discrepancy of what you can do for less, right? Like everybody that's like taking advantage of this can make more money right now, like by less cost or doing more. There's always kind of like you're on the top of the surf, right? You're surfing the wave. It will trickle down to everybody, right? Like everyone's got like you don't have to be technical in 5 years to benefit from AI. Right now, you kind of have to like you can talk to an agent, on ChatGPT or something, but it's not like, agentically operating for you in your own environment. Um, But I guess the bigger picture here is, and I even forget what you asked because I'm just talking about a bunch of things.
No,
But
it was great.
what were we talking about?
Just keep going. This is great. Just keep
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
I'm all for it.
So
Keep going.
so so about like kind of like the transition of like, okay, robotics. Yes. So robotics is already a very established market and it's already highly profitable. The companies that go into it, right? You've got like the ecosystem of enabling technologies. So like how do robots move? They've got actuating and controls and power systems, right? They've got sensors so they can sense and feel the world so they know where they are, what they're doing, how they're acting. This and they've got vision, all these things can come together. So if you start to think about the robotics ecosystem, much like the human ecosystem, right? Like we have our own bodies, but we also have organizations and talk and communication and languages. Robots have the same thing too, right? They have supply chains. They have bodies that, are modular or not. And they have communication systems like they transmit data, using whether it's direct links, Qualcomm, MediaTek, like there's all these, communications for wireless and beyond. Um, and so you start to like think of like the nano, macro, and micro elements of this all, and you actually have again very established companies that, like for example, in our Robo Index, 95% of companies are profitable. So, talking about, yeah, and these are like industrial automation companies that are used to help make cars, but there are, logistics and automation technology companies that are, for example, partnering with Walmart to help move millions and millions of SKUs every single day. These are surgical robots like Intuitive Surgical. So
Yeah.
robots are already here, but we're kind of entering this like next phase of robots right now because of AI. And that's a
Yeah.
really big deal. And I think people are now talking about it as like physical AI, but it's really still just robotics.
Yeah, I think it was packaged a lot. I'll talk. It's Neo. That's what I'm thinking about, right? That's what it's called, Neo.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have a pre-order too. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you do? Okay. Yeah. So
Day one, like I got a message like right when it came out, and I was like, I want to be one of the first to have one of these. Um, yeah,
I ran it by my wife, and she said I don't want to be murdered by the robot. But because she's like, because she's seen like iRobot in all these movies, I was like, I don't think it's quite there. But it was interesting because, and I'm interested in this because I liked how they packaged it. First, great advertising, great marketing, sold me on it because it was problem solution based. I'm like, I got this problem where I have a mess at 2 o'clock in the morning, I have a mess at 2 in the evening. I know how much I spend monthly on having a cleaning lady, but she can't come and be there 24/7. So this
no,
actually solved problems and was technically cheaper than what I was currently doing. But then they package it as I think buying it outright for 20,000 US. But then also, what's that monthly thing? Like $500 USD to
five or
rent it?
600 a month. Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so you just get it shipped to you and you rent it, which in the end will end up making them more money because you'll probably just keep it and just keep paying the monthly installments of whatever subscription service. So
yeah.
they have a subscription service for recurrent payment. When I went, even if subscription service, I'm like, that's infinitely cheaper than what I'm currently paying as well. So it was all these things. I'm like, they made it so retail viable. And when something makes it to retail, I go, that's great. Because you talk about the surgical robots. Yep, seen all that. The industrial ones in car manufacturing. I'm like, yep, I get that. But this one was just like, they dialed it in for retail. But then when I'm looking at it, am I seeing this sort of like as an investor hat on? And I'm going, okay, where's the world gonna be in 5, 10 years? And how do I invest in it now? Is it energy, AI, and then robotics? And that's the tier list when you get, because like, is it just one giant AI thing and just one giant energy investment? Because like that's all you're really investing in is energy infrastructure, because
Well,
all this stuff needs to be fueled.
yeah, energy. I mean, I literally have slides that I've made that just tie that as like energy, AI, and robotics is three separate spokes of a flywheel that we're seeing right now. Did you
Yeah.
did you see my? Yeah, it was
No,
like
no, no. I didn't
conceptually
see it. No, that was just right on top of my
top
head.
secret deck. No,
Yeah.
I mean, conceptually, like AI uses energy. I mean, as I said earlier, it's the physics. AI is the physics of data, on literally, silicon chips right now. And there's various formats, quantum, other elements involved. But it's moving ones and zeros and basically just like storing and calculating and moving data, whether in the air or locally in a data center or on a device. But it also has physical properties too. Robotics is how energy moves atoms in the real world. And that can be used for various set of tasks. whether it's like moving, things down the interstate, that's not a humanoid, or flying in the air, or, even, actually handling specific tasks. Um, and the range of that, and then of course, okay, back to energy, right? Like obviously, robots, we just said robots and AI, like they both require energy. We have food and water and other, oxygen. They have energy. Um, and so and that brings to a question. It's like the energy infrastructure is important. It's also linked, right? Because people talk about data utilization from data centers. That's on top of a lot of people's minds. But I referenced earlier about increased efficiency of assets, right? There's a lot of single use cars on the road at any given time. Like the average asset is not being utilized in an efficient manner. It's in fact, it's probably like a 10% utilization rate out of 100. If you looked at like how efficient we're actually operating today. And I mean like net, like overall, that's like, we've got so much room to grow on that side. So, but a lot of that again is going to have energy tied to it because it's going to be, robots in drones intersecting cars and helping support logistics networks. Um, but robots are used in making energy, whether it's battery or, involved in nuclear. AI is used to help orchestrate. AI is also having its own um, evolution of efficiency, right? So we're getting smarter models that, they have a bigger base, but they're only using a certain percentage of parameters at a time, mixture of experts. So, and of course, like how it's being used is also improving. So even AI today, it's going to get smarter. It's like it's experiencing its own digital evolution. It's going to be more efficient and more powerful. And again, that will help utilize new materials and a lot of different discoveries, right? So again, it is this flywheel that's happening, and then again, all this leads to like higher ROI for the robotic space across every single vertical. And that goes back to your question about like where are jobs heading when, AI and robotics are capable of doing 90% of all work that's needed in the world.
Yeah. That I think some jobs are safe, like plumbers and stuff. Something that could really damage a robot, they wouldn't just get a human in there, right? Because I feel like that would be hard. You ever thought about, and this is me like workshopping with you now, because you said there's a robotics fund. You ever thought about doing a flywheel fund, something that goes A to Z and just captures that entire process of energy to AI to robotics? So someone like me can just buy into that and not do tons of research and just go, yeah, they're doing the research for me. I'll pay the expense ratio. You guys just update the fund with whoever's leading that space or whoever has the best sales or whatever your criteria is. But I know when I buy into your flywheel fund, because I'm really getting to is from an investor watching this, in 10 years, what should my portfolio look like? I personally feel like, oh, there's gonna be a lot of robots running around in 10 years, and AI is gonna be everywhere because it already is everywhere, and energy is gonna be hugely in demand. If I could just own a fund that just did all that for me and just call it my flywheel fund, I would just keep contributing. Like, this is me personal, not financial advice. By the way, guys, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm this guy on YouTube. Disclaimer on screen. But for me, I would like to have something like that. I don't even know if something like that exists. Does anything like that exist? Or if you took this idea, would you be the first mover in this space of the flywheel effect of that exact pipeline?
You have seen a couple like groups like package multi-thematic, different strategies. I mean, as I said, we kind of break it down into those different units of robotics. Robotics overlaps into energy, right? So like there are energy infrastructure players and components, right?
Yeah.
It's not just making energy, it's how the energy is utilized. Right? So it's not just about the power creation. It's like, how do you transmit that more efficiently? How do you use it more efficiently? So that's transmission lines, that's voltage components. So like Delta Electronics. So like, again, like a lot of these names and elements are, we do capture in Robo, but we're not capturing nuclear. And we actually do. And we recently, Edified recently acquired the range indices that have nukes, which is a nuclear strategy. So now, like, I'm glad because everybody asked me about energy. Now we actually do have like an AI and a robotics and a nuclear strategy. But nuclear isn't like, if you just look at nukes, you're getting all the nuclear, like small modular reactors and other companies involved. Um, with Robo, you're getting, the companies that are helping like use that, like once the energy is made, like where does energy go? And like, so like in a way, it's not, I'm not talking about like transmission lines. I'm talking about like, how does Infineon and others use GIC chips and SiC chips to convert energy into movement in a robot, right? So like this is like it's the physics of energy, or the energy of physics is captured, I would say, a lot in robo. And if you're thinking about what percentage of the world will be done and what percentage of GDP, like where does GDP exist today? It's about 65-70% in the physical world. Um, and so if you think about it that way, it's like, robo, like the way we look at robo and triangle these things, that captures a lot of it. But we don't have like pure play, um, how should I say it? We don't have like nuclear, like pure play energy generation. It's like everything that it works with them, but it's everything that happens after that, which I think is actually, just as important, because you can build energy everywhere in the world, whether it's nuclear. And I think the nuclear plays are going to be really interesting, and we're going to see a higher percentage come from that. Especially as we see continued progression to more electric vehicles and the infrastructure around that. Right. The US has about like, I think like 10 times less, uh, a density of, EV charger stations than China. And so when you look at like EV adoption in the US versus China, it's like, well, yeah, I'd rather have, an EV in China than in the US because I can do that. So like these things are gonna, it's a little bit of a slower drip in the US, but it's directionally where we're heading.
Those ETFs you mentioned, what's the URL? Where can I get more information? Because I want to look it up after we're done this interview. What's the URL for that? The website?
Uh, just tickers, right? Like the
Oh
ticker
yeah,
for, yeah, nukes, NUKZ is for the nuclear strategy.
yeah.
Then, ROBO is the robo, strategy. Yeah.
Okay. Do you ever? I from okay, how do I phrase this? My head hurts sometimes when I'm constantly feeling like I have to think about what's next now. Like what's the like, next in AI? How do I update my business? Like it's weekly now, and I honestly feel like I want to unplug my computer and just go live in a log cabin and not do anything some days. Cause I'm just like, I just can't keep up with this. I'm too old for this. I'm 40. I'm just like, I'm way too old for this stuff. I just wish the world would slow down. You're in it. Do you just love it so much you don't feel that and you're all about it? Or do you ever go, oh, this is going so fast. I'm just constantly having to learn and I'm getting exhausted. Cause I feel like a lot of people probably feel like me, just regular people are like, I just can't keep up with this. There's too much happening too fast.
Yeah. The reality is both. Yes. The
Yeah.
answer is yes. Um, I do think, and we're at this point in time because it is really public. It's like the advances happening in AI are very public. And that normally, these types of advances were generally slower, less in public, had very like cadence release schedules. Like this is real time digital evolution that's happening at light speed. And I think that is what's different for this, and how everyone, like, that makes everyone a little unsettled. Um, it also means like, yes, it's a lot to keep up with. I think a lot of people are feeling like they aren't keeping up because it is moving so fast. There's a new model. There's open claw. You're not using open claw. So you have this like range of like what's out there versus like what people are even aware of. And then, sometimes I do want to live in a log cabin in the woods. Other days, I'm really excited about testing the latest,
Yeah.
AI feature. Like, wow, this helped me build or solve this idea I had 10 years ago. And so I think that you're going to have this like mix of like awe and fear happening continuously through this. But I do want to highlight something that, we haven't really had like the Apple moment, or
Yeah.
like, and I mean the Apple moment as in it's still a lot of manual work to work with AI for most people. So we haven't really had this like package system. I mean, even like ChatGPT and all these things, like, maybe OpenClaw is the closest thing, but even that's like rogue and a little scary, in the sense that like, it could go, like things could go wrong. And so like permission access and all these things are very important. Um, so it's not just capabilities, but like how is it structured and secured? That's needed at scale. But we are about to see a world where like the interface to technology is going to be simplified. You won't have to keep up with it as much because your
Yeah.
AI agent setup is going to be your chief life technical partner, right? And
Yeah.
so you won't like, just like you don't think about like updating the kernel of your Microsoft, operating system. There's a whole company like your AI agent will help stay on top of things for you. I even like 10 years ago, I was thinking through a project, and it was like my AI. It was literally called my AI. And it was like there's too much to know, too much to stay on top of. Imagine something that knew everything about you. And like the tagline was like, or not the tagline, but the reality is it's like there's too much to know how to do and what to do. Like there's just
Yeah.
too much out there. And every individual is unique. They have unique circumstances, background, resources, location. Like if I asked you, who are you? You could say your name, you could say where you're born, but there's a lot about you, right? That's unique to you. Like the size, like everyone has different glasses size, like the length between here. Like so many data points that actually define who you are that you don't even think about. If an AI agent can help like you define who you are, the way you navigate the world will be simplified greatly. You'll spend less time actually having to sit in front of a screen with 500 tabs open and more time actually living in the real world. So we might be able to get the best of both worlds of living in that log cabin feeling and being able to get the most out of technology. And that's like the optimistic view that I'm looking for is that, you know, AI, the way it's going is like it will actually unlock us from this sitting down in front of a screen culture that's been, our life for the last however many years as a society.
When I think about that, that's very optimistic. Okay, a couple things there. You said there is the Apple moment. We haven't had that yet. Do you think we're just getting spoiled? Because when I look at AI and how fast it's going, the last 2 years has blown my mind. When ChatGPT first got launched, I went, this is amazing. I thought we went 10 years in the future. And then I thought, I better get on this because, in 10 years, AI will be so crazy. But now AI is already where I thought it'd be in 10 years. It's already made everything obsolete. Like I was saying for my marketing, I'm like, okay. And, there is a lag there between the interfere, like how like engaging with AI, but they're going to get rid of that way faster than anything else. I, I honestly feel like we're at the cusp of kind of a brick phone and then the iPhone super smart coming out. Like we're right there,
Yeah.
except it'll happen even faster than it did with cell phones
Yes.
because AI's help iterating itself too. Like there's that to speed along the process. There's that. And
It's
then
coding itself. It's self-improvement. It's a self-improving organism at this point, right?
yeah, I'm already having the thought, like, like I saw this thing where, because, like I grew up in the 80s and 90s. It's like in the early 2000s, there was no Facebook, there's no Spotify, there's no smartphones. And what did people do? Right. I'm like, oh, yeah, I did live like that. I did live like that. I
We
forgot I
did.
lived
We
like
had a
that.
very analog life. Yeah.
Yeah, but I forgot. It might as well have been a dream. I can't even imagine myself living like that. I already cannot imagine myself operating without AI because I don't know how I would even function. All right, because it's used so like seamlessly. It's used so much. Like even my glasses in them have AI running through my glasses right now as we're speaking. Right, like I just have things in my eye line that I can see that you can't see while we're speaking. And it just helps me navigate my life while I'm going about my business. It's everywhere.
Yeah. We're
So
cyborg. We are truly cyborg.
like, what's the next step is like have a chip in your brain. And I'm a guy who's into VR, right? And where where I see it is you go, hey, it'll make everyone's life way easier. They'll get out and explore more. I'm not as optimistic. I think people become more antisocial and lose. Maybe they get better like cyber social skills of how to communicate with people online, but face to face interactions, I think, are going to become more like less frequent. People will get more and more isolated, and they won't have the like. It'll only be the outliers, people who are naturally extroverted, who'll be doing stuff like who like to get out in nature. But people who are more middle of the road, don't lean one way or the other, might just fall into convenience. And like,
Yeah.
I don't have to leave
I
my
don't.
house.
I don't
Robot
disagree.
does everything.
I think I remember this whole yeah I'm remembering a specific job application I had one time where I had to pitch. This was over decade long time ago. It was for a well-known VC fund, and I remember like pitching this idea that like AI or technology is about to make it so like the lazy can be lazy and the people that want to do more can do more. And it's
Yes.
like we're gonna go from like just a platform to do something to help me do it to do it for me. And like I do think, I don't know, what's the movie Wall-E where you've got the people floating, and it's just like they're all kind of locked into the screens. Like, yeah, like there already are people like that today. Like that is already like, I don't know what percentage of people on the planet and what, geography, first world, second world, third world, like that scenario already exists. You already have the brain rot, you already have the people that just live on screens. Like that already exists without what you just
Yeah.
said of kind of like it being integrated. And so, you also have people that work jobs they don't want and they're barely making ends meet. And so you kind of have these like where do you weigh the scale of like what's good, what's bad, and like what value system do you ascribe to that? And I think that's something I think about a lot because I have to, right? It's kind of
Yeah.
like, like it's not just like technology doesn't operate in a vacuum. No one lives in a vacuum. Like we are interconnected. But you're right. Going back to that human in the loop concept, it's like a lot of people can live a day in the life online, working from home, and have DoorDash bring them a thing. There might not be a single human involved in anyone's day to survive or get what they need on their own mental mind, has laws or your whatever like whoever's name is like XYZ names hierarchy of needs. Like it's theoretically for a lot of people all gonna feel solved. And that's both a problem and a great thing at the same time in a way. But
Yeah.
it gets into like a crisis of purpose. Like I think that's something I identified early on as like we will have to figure this out, but it's happening and inevitable. So I need to like, be on top of this. Um
I just had a thought because you're sort of saying, it's gonna allow you to be more of whatever you already are. Like in the 80s and 90s, there's people who just sit down and watch in the 2000s who would just sit and watch DVDs all day on their TV. Smartphones came out, they just switched to using your phone because it's even more convenient. They still did nothing. If they're gonna do nothing, they did nothing. People are hyper like productive, got more productive. I know for myself, I squeeze out every ounce of productivity while I'm working because I got a family and kids, right? So my computer, my glasses, every function on my workday is so optimized because of AI and
yeah.
technology that I can work like 10 people in 8 hours, right? So I'm
Yeah.
I'm able to get way more successful than I probably would have been if I tried to do any of this 5 years, 10 years ago. So I can
Yeah.
squeeze out productivity to spend more time with my family, but I'm already this human being. I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. I developed a personality outside of technology. I found out that I like doing other stuff. And then I go, great, now we got this new fun. Like I watched smartphones come up. I had dial-up internet. So I got to be a person before technology got involved. So I could use it as a tool to live a better life. Now, what happens? I got a 2 year old, a 4 year old, another kid on the way. They live in a world without that opportunity. This is just how they navigate. Do they stunt their psychological growth? Do they stunt figuring out who they are? Or are they just immediately born into, this is, it's the only word I can think of, human cyborg combination
Are you
where
talking
they're
about
literally,
Pluribus here?
yeah. Well,
Where
I
we
haven't
have
seen it
like
yet.
a single hive mind, everyone gets the same content that's been optimized to capture your.
They're
Yeah,
fit.
look,
They're, yeah,
I
yeah.
I do think, and I don't have kids, but I have nieces, no nephews, nieces, and I think about them a lot about where things are heading and what this means. Um, and it used to be, oh, you won't always have a calculator in your pocket, and now it's like you will have a brainulator in your head. Like,
Yeah.
like, like you're right. Like, there's a lot of decision making, like the agency. I think of agency a lot. And individuals have a certain level of agency inside of them. Um, you mentioned, it will make you more of who you are. Um, I do think like you can also use it for transformation as well. Like, hey, I know I have these problems. So, like right now, the way a lot of technology has worked is it actually just manipulates and hijacks your weaknesses, whether you're like, like
Yeah.
video games, like gambling, like all these things are very like the way the world has been optimized, it's like literally made to make money off manipulating you to give money, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a vulture, I call it the vulture economy. And I do think in an optimized AI world where, you have your own AI working for you and it's not a third party, like it truly tries to figure out who you are, your weaknesses are, not to be used against you, but to actually be like, hey, this person has problems with X, Y, and Z. Like, how do I help nudge them or like work with them and like collaboratively if they want this, to make their lives better. And I think that's a really, again, I have like optimistic and pessimistic views. You kind of portrayed the like negative view, but it's like, if AI could be like a life coach and an assistant, I think you can actually like, edge that in a more positive direction. Um, but again, it's like, where does the agency of decision making go for, someone who's 2 years old? Like, what is 10 years from now? Like, is AI making all their decisions? Like, do they feel comfortable even making their own decisions? Like, what happens to confidence and all these things? Like, I don't have an answer to that.
I kind of have an answer if you want to hear it. So I come from the advertising world, so I know the psychological ramifications of Instagram on the brain. And
Yeah.
like I know, like I exploited it for years. Like
Yeah.
you sell a lifestyle to get someone to buy a product. It's why I'm actually so adverse to it on this YouTube channel. I'll just show people like, hey, I just like look like garbage half the time, and I just show them what my real life looks like, so people know that this is what real life looks like when you're successful. It's just like a guy who's tired all the time.
So you're telling me
Like,
you're not sponsored by Google over here?
no, no, no,
You're like,
I'm
no,
not.
I'm promoting. See, it's more of it's more about your wife. You're promoting
Yeah,
family household
um,
values.
and it's the only mug I could find right before we jumped on.
I know
So
we
there's
talked
that.
about. Yeah.
Um, but like so like this is my way of countering what I see online is how I present myself online is being like, no, let's just always be super raw with it. But I'm so paranoid from it because I've seen firsthand how it messes children up and how it messes up adults. Even like
Yeah.
my retired parents will like get psychologically influenced by Facebook, that I'm just not letting my kids use social media. I'm gonna make them social pariahs at school where they just won't have the cell phone. They won't have, and if they want to go on Facebook, they have to go through my account when they're old enough. But then I'm teaching them how to navigate it all and how social media works, all the dangers of it. It just they can't sneak off and use a phone in the bedroom all day and be fed all that. Because a good example I go is when I was in high school, there's a singer called Usher. He's that black singer guy who's like singing and it looks all
I know.
cool.
I'm sure.
I don't know how young you are. You look young, so I have no idea how
Oh,
young you are.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
Uh,
yeah, I'm 35. I'm 35.
okay, so you're
Yeah.
younger than me. So Usher was still a little bit beyond you, but like
No,
Usher,
I remember. I mean, I was. Trust me, we were ushered. We were ushered.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
when I watched him in high school, I was a professional dancer in high school. So I'd watch him. I'm like, oh, he's just the coolest guy ever. I'd watch one video on Much Music or MTV. 5 minutes of Usher looking great and me feeling like garbage, be like, I wish I was that cool. Self confidence only plummeted for a bit. And when I came home from school, I was only around my parents and my brothers, so self confidence was sort of kept protected at school. If I got bullied or whatever, it stayed there. When you now you're just 24/7 inundated by social media telling you you're not enough, and then maybe bullying crosses over. So I'm just gonna cut that all out for my kids. But at the same time, dad comes from advertising marketing, so they just get all the hard lessons of how to navigate it all. So by the time they're 18, they could probably run marketing campaigns, create social media accounts, understand how manipulation works, and understand that it has no impact on their confidence. Like I was gonna train them up and everything, but not let them alone with a phone in their hand because I think that's dangerous because it
It
just
is.
messes up your brain.
It is dangerous, and I very much am not a fan of social media. Like I don't like it. Like I think we will see, and I hope we see kind of like a pivot towards more connected networks in a positive way. Like you're right. Like, in a world where you see the most perfect form of everything, the people who package content the best, like everything is just like perfect, 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 or not, or it's whatever tangent of the internet you go down. Um, yeah, like I think you will see a like hopefully a pivot to um the more analog, like the real values, or at least maybe it's communities, maybe it's like, maybe it's physical geological areas, or maybe it's just, within every cohort of like children growing up, like it's like decided by the families. Maybe certain schools like adopt more like not, like analog policies, and I think there's a way to do this in a bright way. But like I agree, like social media, the way it's like used is not positive. It's addicting. It's meant to be addictive. Um, so I think and am hopeful that we do see a way to get the most out of technology without, I'm not gonna say depending, because like at a certain point we are cyborg. We already use the internet every day. We order things online. Like we already are like quasi dependent. Or at least it's like it's configured to be it's optimal. Let's not call it dependent. Let's call it like it's we're configuring our own optimal life. Like I don't have time to go get food today. I can order something on DoorDash, right? Like that's optimal. People have been ordering pizza for a long time. It's just, it's becoming like we're able to be less, like more asynchronous. with what we get out of technology. That's a big point. Remember that like that concept, like asynchronous, right? Like able to get more without like more for less.
I definitely don't think anyone should fight the technology movements that we have, shouldn't fight against AI. They should actually embrace it. I 100% think that because I feel like as humans, this is our natural form of evolution. This is how we evolve. We don't actually evolve biologically anymore. It's through technology. That's why we got thumbs. So I don't think we should fight it. I think we should embrace it, but then have a heavy focus, like equally important focus on mental health. Like, all right, let's take it in, but can we just always talk about how we feel in our heads at all times to know that we're all not going to go crazy and snap and have nervous breakdowns or do something self-harm or something because technology calls us to feel and think a kind of way. I think embrace it and equally go, I'm going to be vulnerable and I'm going to be very aware of my mental health, even if I'm a 300-pound jack guy who's a bodybuilder or I'm a little petite lady. We're going to treat ourselves like vulnerable human beings and just check ourselves and be like, wait a second, I feel some kind of way about watching this. I feel some kind of way, but I feel less than, or I feel great. Because for me personally, I like when I have in front of my laptop, when I sit in this office, because I got a whole bunch of stuff you guys can't see, I feel unstoppable. Because I know at a fingertip I can make God knows how much cash at any moment, and I can provide for my family because I got everything I need here without moving. Legitimately, this one room. At the same time, I also know this could crumble me mentally, and it would cause me not to show up for my family. If I consume the wrong content, I get too over obsessed with work. I can't turn my phone off. All that. I know that there's that duality to it. What do you feel about that sort of focus on embrace technology, don't fight it, but then equally man, just accept that you're a human, your brain is fragile, and check yourself constantly to make sure you're okay.
Yeah. Let's see. I think I think everything needs balance. I think we keep circling around that here, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
you like as an individual, you need to figure out what your values are. Like let's like who are you? Like, who do like, I think people do need to have, like, especially as AI is coming along, it's like in this moment, if you're listening, like, you do need to do kind of like an exercise of like redefining and figuring out who you are and what you want to be. Like, those are important things for people to do all the time, no matter what stage in history and life you are. It's like, who are you? What are your values? Like, I call it like in a way I have my own like identity hub. I'm actually using AI to help like work with me on this. Like I actually have like I call it my own identity matrix. And I'm like working with it to help like figure out my values. And then like if I'm making a decision, it knows what my values are. So like the recommendations it's giving are more personalized based on what it knows that I care about. So it's like, I'm actually using it to like align, like to help me make decisions and do things that are aligned with my values, which I think is a really interesting angle there. Um, and so like, talking about this balance, I'm like, well, I'm like leaning in to like make it work in a way of the things I care about more. Like, hey, if I haven't talked to so and so for a while, like that I care about, I've been busy. Like, here's a gentle nudge, right? Like, there's a lot of nice things where it's like, what are my values? Like, okay, there's healthy, wealthy, wise. Like, I'm not saying those are my values, but there's like different, are you healthy? Like, are you taking care of yourself? Are you moving enough? We already get notifications from our watch when we aren't moving. There's already like a lot of like gentle, helpful nudges. What are your resources that you're not using? Right? More people have more resources that they don't know about, whether because they're just not aware of it. So like I have it trying to find constantly like resources that I'm not tapping into, credit card perks I'm not using, things like that. Like it knows it basically I'm inputting everything about my life into this identity matrix. And it's like goal is to like improve my life and take advantage of the things that I'm not even aware of or nudge me in the direction. So I'm trying to do like the anti social media approach of technology and do like the pro me approach. And I like really like where that's heading for myself. Um, it's helping me do the thing, like do less of the things I don't want to do and more of the things that I know I should be doing. It's constantly refining, but you know, I think we're going to see more types of like products and services that are like meant for that. And again, people are going to always like go down the clickbait, brain rot path. But, I hope that, collectively people will push each other to use technology in a way that benefits them. And I think we'll see that take off. And I'm excited for that path. I really am.
I want to hear more about your identity matrix. This is really, really cool. How are you doing it? Because you're smart. do you like are you doing like a custom thing you
Sure.
built or no no you are no because like sometimes my brain when you talk about it, I go, did you build out some custom AI program that you did it yourself with a bunch of agents and it's beyond my scope and I would have to like pay someone, or is this something where I could work with like a chat GPT or a Claude and build out and maybe just give it like, like in the description section, here's what I'm working on. Like how would I go about building something similar as a normal person? Because I want, you're talking about it, I want the same, I want that essentially. So help me, how can I get started with building out that?
Yeah, so this goes back to that idea I had 10 years ago, my AI. I even did like a general assembly course around it. And so like I've had those like core idea for a long time. And it was like NLP wasn't even good enough. The paper transformation is all you need hadn't even come out yet. So like I had this kind of like vision of like where technology could go for a long time, right? Like, there's principles, right? And you can even ingrain principles. Right now, I don't think anyone's really packaged this in a way that works. I do think with OpenAI's kind of like acquihire of the OpenClaw founder, like they might start to like build out functionality they can do this. But again, it all comes down to incentives and alignment, right? Like technology, like if you're operating at a large tech company, you can't rock your own boat. You can't rock the mount, the hands that feed you, right? Like the cash flow, the monetization engine. And so I don't know if this has to come from within or outside. I don't know how that's going to look. I think, a lot of these models are going to have to change as AI comes, right? I mean, conversely, like ChatGPT is, putting advertisements in their cheaper tiers. Um, to try to answer your question on how to do this, hopefully I might have something packaged that you could use at some point, right? Like that would be a goal for me is to like
Yeah.
figure out like, lock this in to a point where it is more usable. And I call it like the hub and spoke model. And then everything you interact with is a terrain in the world, right?
Yeah.
Like you have your hub, like who's your inner hub? Like who are you? And then like, what are the attributes about you? Right? Like who are your core people around you? And then like how do you interact with the world as a terrain? Like that's how I look at how technology should work.
That would be
As
amazing. Like, that would be
that's the framework
crazy.
that I think is where we're heading. And I think, whether it's, something I vibe code or I think, again, I don't know if there's a moat to anything anymore. And I don't mean that in a negative way or a positive way. It just, the technology is eating the world. Um, I do think that again, that concept of like your data is not being used. I mean, think about how many times you've had to log in to like any website, doctor, whatever, and repeat stuff, tell the
Hmm.
same story. Like your story's already there and it should be usable.
Yeah.
And that's a
I
friction point. It prevents people from getting help. Like like there's friction points all across every point of your day. And if you actually were able to just like use everything you already had that's already there. You just need help getting it all together. That itself can help make, an identity matrix, if you will.
I like even as you're talking about it, like especially when you say friction points, like I can visualize it, and I just could feel myself operating with more clarity throughout my day, and almost like a tension in my brain getting released. I'm like I literally sliding through life. Things are just happening, and there's less of that friction. Like that would subconsciously, I don't people realize how much that would alleviate them throughout. Like they would just feel better and not know why they feel better because they're not bumping up against things so often. Because as technology advances, you are bumping up against so many things constantly. But when you hit that tipping point of what you're kind of talking about, where you can integrate it in that positive way, it'll actually tip. And then you're like, oh, whoa, I'm operating in the real world way more efficiently. But then we talk about efficiency. My feed has been inundated with Elon Musk stuff lately. I must have watched
Sure.
one video. I watched like one video of his, and then YouTube's like, "You love him," and then it just feeds him the stuff. But I don't know if this is from recent stuff. But he's asked about he. I heard a couple of quotes where he's like, "Yeah, don't bother saving money. In 20 years, money will be useless. Don't bother doing anything. Like, who cares about investing? Because with robotics and AI, there'll be no use for anything. You're just gonna live your life and do your thing." Is That's the part where I went, okay, why do I have a financial YouTube channel? Why am I saving so much money? Should I just start acquiring assets like acreage? Because if money doesn't mean anything, is this gonna be whoever at that moment owns the most stuff and that's theirs legally and they're the winners? tech the winners in life. So I should get on real estate even faster because in 20 years no one buying anything. So I'm just a guy who owns 10 acres when no one can even buy in. Is that the method now? Is there any validity to what he's saying? Like, where is that coming from? What's he seeing that I'm not seeing? He's saying robotics and AI. Is that even a real thing, or is that just him being him and just maybe living in too much of a bubble himself?
I think kind of like with my bird's eye view of looking at the entire robotics ecosystem, the AI ecosystem, the choke points, limitations, how it's implementing. Like we actually put out like, like a 2026 trends, like outlook and trends report called like the Robo Global 2026 trends report. And one of the things we talked about unlocking this year is the hand, kind of like the fusion of being able to simulate vision language action models, sensors, and like basically like you can now you know figure out tasks. You can talk to tasks, you can understand tasks, and then the hands themselves are getting better. So they can actually just like download skills or even zero shot figure out how to solve something. The second we have cheap, scalable hands that work very, very well at, let's call it superhuman capabilities because they can do everything. That has been a differentiator. Like I go all the way back to the dawn of humanity often in my head. I'm like, what made humans unique? And, it was, our brains, our communication, being able to understand and synthesize data and share that information, and then what we could do with that information, right, at scale. So we like figured out, oh, we can do agriculture. We have hands that can like make tools and use tools. So we like also figured out how to use tools. So we were smart, we could communicate, we had hands, and we could make and use tools. That's like kind of it. Like if you really think about it, we are giving robots all of those skills right now.
Yeah.
And so if a robot we talk to each other at a like even this podcast, we are sharing information at an interesting clip, like it's one at a time, that one of us is talking, one of us is listening. Everyone in the future will be listening to this. And I say everyone, I mean everyone in the world, of course, when they our hive mind connects, and they download this. But robots and data and AI, like they communicated at speeds that are incomprehensible to us, right? Like multimodal, they can collect all different data points. They can have like nearly perfect memory of anything they see, or it gets stored in a cloud somewhere. It's like a highly optimized system. And now it's able to like actually do, or like I think by the end of this year, we're seeing like it'll be able to do like, what percentage of tasks? If again, and then it becomes like how much does that hand cost? What's the weight of that hand? What are the power requirements of that hand? Where can you put that hand? Can you go on a drone? Can you have drones with hands? Like imagine birds with human hands and unlimited intelligence. And I'm not saying they are individual agents operating. They're going to be tethered and connected to something and orchestrating. So companies that are like in charge of like orchestrating that element, talking from an investment standpoint, like those are types of areas that are interesting. And, from like a 5-10 year horizon, like, yeah, probably a good place to put your money, at least if you had a bet on something. Um, at least I think so, not investment advice, but just, that's the angle that I'm seeing. It's like, oh, this is all really coming together right now. Um, and so, yeah, in terms of like, we even have a slide where we talk about like and project, and we think about like where are capabilities today as a percentage of GDP versus what percentage of money is actually being done by these and invested into this. So it's kind of like, what percentage of GDP is capable of being done or is done by robots today? So those are two different variables. Where does that look in 2030? Where does that look at 2040? So we're like also breaking this down. OpenAI has their own research arm. This is a research project that's ongoing for us. Um, and the answer right now is like, you know, well, over 80% of GDP, maybe 90% can be done by a robot by 2040, maybe earlier. And I say could be done, could be 100%. I mean, if this flywheel accelerates even faster, it's literally just physics bound at that point, going back to your like energy constraints and actual physical materials. Um, and but it won't be that level of GDP done by robots or AI or let's say invested. Like we still exist, but it's going to be a lot higher percentage of the economy is here, and maybe less, maybe the same, but less for like enterprise SaaS solutions, right? Like I think like people are finally catching on with like the SaaS apocalypse stuff that like maybe you won't make money off AI agents off your like siloed, expensive database, and maybe that can sit somewhere else and operate off a cheaper ecosystem. Like we're seeing that happen right now with like Salesforce and ServiceNow and all these things. It's like
Yeah.
you just have ones and zeros in a database in a cloud, and you're not gonna wait. We can make this AI agent ourselves. You know, with the code, it can code. You know, like this is where things are heading. I think we saw Klarna as like one of an early example of a company that left Salesforce. It was like, yeah, we can just wait. We're just storing data, and now AI can act on it. It can make a user interface that's customized to us. We don't need to pay a bunch of consultants to do that. So you're seeing that kind of like incentivization in the enterprise to be like, hey, how do we optimize our own operations? And of course, like even robotics companies can optimize and use AI more across their own OpEx, right? Like the digital OpEx. So there's a lot to unpack there. And again, the kind of like infinite tangents to go down, but to circle back to like Elon Musk projections, like that is a non zero chance, theoretically possible environment where, robots can and AI can do, 90% of GDP work.
Before we go, then I'm gonna set you up with one hypothetical scenario. You can just tinfoil hat this. This will be the last thing. I'm just gonna set you up here. My dad is in his early 80s. He's like 84. So I'm 40, you're 35. So in 44 years for me, I guess, and 50 years for you, when we're my dad's age, knowing where we are right now, we got robots with hands. I think Elon Musk has it all the way down to the tendon to the finger so it actually moves like this. You got Neo, who's folding laundry and learning. You got AI that's advancing super, super fast. But then you got energy infrastructure being built to support all this, most likely. But then you also have a report coming out that for the first time, this newer generation of kids is dumber than the previous generation. That's never happened. So that's the first time. Every generation has actually been smarter than the one previous. This is the first time they actually scored lower on an IQ test and everything. And they're the social media generation. So you have that coming. You have robotics probably coming in and making life a lot easier. You have AI doing a lot of the thinking for people. You have Elon Musk talking about how income might not be needed and who cares, robots taking over. So when in 50 years, and then I've also talked to longevity experts who are saying, oh yeah, we have AI, we're using AI to develop therapeutic treatments that when you're 60, you feel 30. I've talked to like all these experts. So they're developing those technologies. When I'm 80 and you're 75, let's just say that in your brain, and we'll end it here, paint the picture of what you think the world looks like. Your own opinion, not fact. It's your opinion, what you think, what you visualize when you see that world when you're 75.
Wow. Yeah, that's a tough one because already 2040 looks really interesting. And if you add some decades beyond that, um, that's a really tough thing to answer. I actually feel like I hit a veil in my head on what I don't want to call it the end game, but like, you've kind of brought up a point, like even with like intelligence scores of like, are we creating a silicon sapien here, right? Is are we are we at peak human, or did we create the thing, the digital physic, whatever infrastructure that supersedes us? Like, that's a scary thing to say, but I'll say it out loud. It's like that is, you know, are we needed versus like what's our purpose versus, what should we be doing with our time when technically all problems are solved? I, I don't know. I think I don't have an answer to that. I really don't. I mean, it's like, I think, you basically will be living in a world like Fantasia where you control things with your mind, right? I think we figure out like the digital, the physical interface. You walk through doors, they open for you. Like I think we're literally going to be able to control things. I mean, even like Meta's Neuralink band or neural band, not even getting in the brain interfaces, they're coming out with a watch. I was on like a Yahoo Studio thing last year, the year before, about brain computer interfaces, and I remember talking about this a little bit about like we're talking about those like friction points. Is like, Elon Musk talks about your meat sticks is like we have to type, but like, either we think or we make gestures, or in an ideal world, you do both, right? You can kind of like, I should be able to like point to that blind and do that, and it comes down. And that won't be an expensive thing to do or implement at some point in time, right? And
Yeah.
so I don't that's not even 2080. I'm talking like 2030 or something, 5 years from now, 10 years, maybe 2035. Um, yeah, I think we will see continued fusion of biological and digital, and robotics happened. I don't know where that leads us, but that is where we're heading.
All right, Zeno, this was fantastic. So basically, everybody, the world is changing really, really fast. Nobody really knows what's going to happen, but just take care of yourself while this is happening. Use AI to your advantage. Be more productive. Check in on yourself with AI. Self improvement. I love the stuff you're doing. I just love everything. I really hope you package that into something that we can all use. I think that's how it should be used.
Yeah. Thank you for, yeah, I agree. Like I've seen kind of like both sides of it. Like everything in the world, the tool, whatever, can be used for good, can be used for bad, and it's what you make with it. Like we are a collective of individuals on this planet. And everyone has a unique set of circumstances and different access to things, whether it's technology, food, water, up and down the need, connective connection to the world, to people around them. And I think, being able to lean into this tech and share it in a positive way is something that you can do. Um, like if you talk, I talk to my parents and like they need help with all these technical things. I'm like, gosh, I wish AI, I'm like, oh yeah, AI will make it a lot easier for them to just be like, this is my problem. And it's like, instead of having to like physically like Google a YouTube video of like how to get to that setting, it just solves it for them. So I
Yeah.
think you'll even get like the people that didn't make our like, analog to digital transition, the bandwidth or the dial up phase. I was there.
Yeah.
Don't count me out. But I think they will benefit from this too in a way that, like, I think the last 10 years, for the majority of them, they've kind of been left out. Like they've
Yeah.
they've gotten it, they've gotten access to it, but like only a fraction of them are like, fully digitally native. And I think we're gonna get to a point where that lag will catch back up to them in a positive way. And I'm excited
I
for that too.
I never thought about that, but you're dead on there. Yeah, it's gonna make it accessible now to the older generation, make it super easy to use and integrate into their lives and make their lives way better. I didn't even think about that. That's for another podcast, guys. All right, Zeno, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Talk soon.
Gary. See ya.
Bye.